Welcome to the Obvious Leadership Podcast, where we dive into practical leadership insights that are, well, obvious. Your hosts have walked the talk, and now they're sharing their knowledge, strategies, and advice. Let's jump into today's episode and explore the world of leadership with your hosts, Joey and Omar.
I know that we were talking about wanting to pretty much make today's episodes a little bit more focused on two things. But before we start on those, let's jump into the first big one, right? We'll talk about the second one if we got time.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's so huge too, because I know I mentioned that in the last couple of shows, right? We got a company out here in California. And that's one of the biggest things for them, right? For my dad and for his partners, the employee engagement, right? Keeping people on board, keeping them engaged, keeping them for a long term. And part of that is you got to understand what motivates your team, right? And I know we mentioned it before. We've talked about it plenty, you can talk about it plenty, but it's got to drill in here and get stuck in there, right, brother?
Yeah, for real, man. I feel like we could talk about it till we're blue in the face, right? But we all know that we encounter the situations where, basically you tried everything that you can and you're not getting the engagement that you want. And, in those situations, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. And it's not about what you're supposed to do, right? Because a lot of people are like, they look at it as like, there is something that I can inherently do to control the situation. And that's where your like manager style tends to jump in. Because as a manager, once again, you are in charge of processes. We're talking about soft skills when it comes to people. And it's not about what you can do to control that aspect. It's how can you bring that out? Because your team's got to feel comfortable with you to want to share what motivates them. They have to be able to have that sense of, my leader doesn't talk down. My leader has that open door policy. I know a lot of managers talk about, oh yeah, we have an open door policy, but how often is that door actually closed, right? Right. Or how often is it like, no. Or it doesn't bring a truly inviting, environment on the face. If you were to just do a superficial look about, which a lot of executives do, it's always a superficial visit because they truly don't understand what they have in the market and where they're missing points at, right?
Yeah, well,
that's what it is.
I think you're right, man. It's not about what you can do, right? It's about what have you done, right? It's what have you been doing to try and influence that situation, to make things better for you and the employees that are working around you, So it's about being consistent. It's about making sure that you're always putting your best foot forward. You're always on stage, just like you said. We're not talking down to people. We have that door open to invite any kind of criticism or any kind of feelings that they're feeling. You want them to be able to feel comfortable enough to share those things with you, because that's when you make those jumps from not being engaged to semi-engaged to, over the top engaged, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to take one further, right? It's not to make your stuff easy at first. As a leader, you got to throw that out the window, especially if you're new or if you have a new team. It involves putting in some grit. It involves putting in some work, right? And having the grit to actually get things done. And it means oftentimes you're going to lead by example. You're going to showcase what you essentially expect, but a lot of that is going to fall on you to show it so that your team can be able to mimic it. Think of them as little kids that are learning how to, sit up, not even crawl or walk, right? Especially if you have to retrain because obviously bad leadership, right? There's a difference when you're taking over a store or an area because somebody got promoted and the store does well, as opposed to coming in to essentially clean house. And once again, guys, cleaning house does not mean you're firing people. Cleaning house means you're cleaning bad habits out,
Very
and
like it.
in actually bringing in things that are going to truly be supportive of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you saying that, man, because I feel like a lot of times managers feel like they can't get things done unless they bring somebody from their previous location that's already bought in. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
that can't be the crush that we lean on to be able to move the team forward that's existing, right? Those people at one time were motivated. Those people at one time were the people that we interviewed and gave them that job because we thought they were the best fit for that job, right? So we have to make sure that we are taking that all in before we sit there and say, oh, we're going to clean house and let these people go. Man, and this is probably one of my my bad features is that I try to see the best in everybody. I want to make it work so bad, but like I said, I know that about myself, and I had to bring myself back in sometimes.
Yeah, and here's a twofer, right? Uh, put it this way: I've told you I'm originally from California. I got transferred to a completely different state to open up a department, right? Do you think I have the ability to actually bring somebody from California over? No. You're going to be in those positions where you're getting promoted, you're relocating for the promotion, whether it's internally or with a different organization.
Yeah.
And bringing people across states, bringing people across the different cities is difficult. To do across different states, that's typically going to be, a one-man show as a leader, and you're going to go and showcase what you have. So you have to really work on developing and training people, right? And then the other aspect to that is when it comes to like showcasing the true aspects of what you want, right? It's one of those where you need to step it in and really be supportive of. It's like at the tip of my tongue. But you really got to be supportive of those habits that you want to actually transpire and to grow, right? You want to be supportive. Not everybody's going to know what to do. Not everybody's going to have the right habits. It's going to take that grit, and you're going to have to step in and do it. And doing it doesn't mean that you're going to do every single thing. You're going to start it off, and you're going to involve your team. Because if you always do everything yourself and you're pretty much giving your team that I don't need you feeling, like I'm going to do this myself without you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all they feel like is that you're here to fire me.
Yeah.
Right? And whenever I've taken over locations, whether it's stores or districts, the biggest thing, and even when I've gone out to do, observations on like regional directors and their areas, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't I'm here because I'm here to fire you. It's I'm here to see what you're doing. And my intention is to want to keep you.
Yeah.
If you show me that you don't want to be here, and we're having conversations, obviously, and you just show me that you really don't want to change and you're utterly miserable, then obviously things have to change, right? But I'm giving you every single opportunity to prove me right that you want to stay.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in those positions, man, where, you have the best of intentions and somebody's just way too burnt out, and, I've been in those situations where I tell them, hey, look, what is it that you want from this job? And they just say, honestly, I don't want this job, right? So at that point, I said, okay, well, what can I do to support you in finding your next endeavor, right? Whether it's something with this company or whether it's something with another company, how can I help you grow, right? So that we get to where you want to go, right? And I feel like that says a lot about you as a leader. And maybe they can draw themselves back in, but I think they're wanting to listen to you at that point. You know what I mean? Like they're wanting to take what you're having to say. They're wanting to kind of go in the direction that you're wanting to bring the team, and they're not going to be the one that's kind of dragging behind and pulling people the other way.
Oh yeah, and guys, before we even get it started on this topic, we are not talking pay, right? That is the one thing that we are not talking. Obviously, every company is different. Right now, this is the 24th of July. This episode's going to come out later, as you guys are going to notice on a lot of our episodes. So everything that's happening right now, or looks to maybe drop and happen in the next like week and a half, 2 weeks, we're not talking pay. That is a completely different pay, benefits, all that is a completely different topic. We're talking about the compensation is there. That's not an issue with your teams. We're talking about the actual actions of people wanting to stay. And yes, the elephant in the room is that obviously compensation is a big factor when it comes to that. Nobody wants to stay at a shit job that pays like shit, right? Excuse my language, but nobody wants to. They are going to find their first way out unless they're they're really taken care of and it's just a whatever job.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's important for you to analyze those things, right? And it's on the surface, there's a lot of people that may say, yeah, compensation isn't great. We don't get rewarded for this. We don't get rewarded for that. But you as a leader have to come out and find the positive things that are out there, right? And lead with those and lead the team to those things, right? Show them how to get there. And then you can prove to them that, hey, look, compensation really isn't that bad. It's just we may have been looking at it the wrong way. And this is how
it's a mindset thing if you think about that, right? It's how you frame things about and how you think about things. Because the whole like glasses half full, glasses half empty mindset, that is literally a frame of mind. Is it half empty? Is it half full? I'm really the one who gets to decide that, right?
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing, but you can't force your people to think that way. You can help them to that point though, because especially for you guys that have a lot of entry level positions that get filled by younger generations, a lot of them don't have that mentorship to really help them see that in a different aspect, right? So it's you as a leader stepping into that role to really help them and take them to that point. And a lot of it is going to be, push and shove, because change is growth and change is different, and people don't like change, right?
Right.
But they welcome it once it's happened, right?
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, they welcome it once they kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? In front of their face, you're like, hey, this is easily achievable, right? Then they kind of welcome that change, and really they don't see it as a change. They see it as a go-get, right? This is a target. This is where we want to be, right? This is where we should have been, right? And I think that's part of the motivation. I mean, we look at compensation and we say that, hey, look, this is a driving force for negative energy that's around the team, but honestly, it's due to a underlying issue, and it's your job as a leader to kind of understand your people, like we've been saying, right? Understand your people, figure out what motivates them, and make sure that you are leading them to the change that they need so that they can pursue, whatever greatness it is they want to be with the team, right?
Yeah, and that comes down to essentially bringing that positivity. I'm not saying you have to be, positive, whatever. You're always a yay cheerleader.
Yeah.
It means that you have a positive environment where they feel comfortable voicing themselves, where they know that their leader is going to support them, right? And is going to help adjust course. Because I've said this before, being a leader is not being a BFF to your employees, to your team. That is actually the worst thing you could do to them. If they see you as a BFF, right, they are not going to listen to you the way that they should. I'm not saying that, okay, you need to crack a whip or anything. I'm saying that when it comes down to it, they need to understand, all right, guys, there's a time for play, and there's a time where we got to get stuff done, right?
Right.
And you don't have to be a BFF. They don't have to like you. There are going to be a lot of times where, just like family, they want to punch your lights out. We've all been in that position, right?
Yeah.
And it's because it's differences of opinion, but things have to get done. So, all right, guys, let's go ahead and push this. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to hit. Yeah. This is kind of like the general frame that we're going to go. What are some thoughts? All right, cool. Good ideas. let's try this out first, see how it goes. And if we need to correct course, we're going to go that route. Okay. And then stepping in to be able to assist everybody and getting everything that you need to get taken care of done.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that positivity, that environment where your team can feel comfortable with you, that's where you start seeing people fall off. That's where you start seeing people leave. That's when, you know, things really fall through the crack, because your team isn't going to tell you what's actually going on in the field. They're not, and that's your own backyard.
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean, honestly, man, so you talk about a family, right? And, you know, if you are one of the parents in that family and there is a natural disaster going on, right? Are you going to sit there and panic? You know, if, let's say you have kids, are you going to sit there and panic and you're going to show a whole bunch of negativity? Are you going to, you know, be running around like waving your hands up in the air like, I don't know what to do next? Like, no, like if you're the parent in the family, you understand that you have a certain stature, you have a certain embracement of the situation that you have to basically uphold everybody to, right? You have to make sure you're bringing everybody to a sense of calmness, to a sense of neutrality, and that there is one target in mind, right? We need to get to this particular point so that we can move past whatever, right? And that's the same thing as a team leader, right? You have to make sure that you are, you know, showing that neutrality, right? And also vulnerability, however you say it, vulnerable. You have to show that you're vulnerable. And that will bring that out of your team so that they're wanting to share their feelings, right? So that you can help course correct them and get them back on the right track, and the track of positivity, really, right? That's where we all want to be moving forward.
And a big way to help out, I mean, encourage what they're doing and also reward it. Rewards are different things, right? But people like to be rewarded in public. Having those one-offs where it's private, like, oh, hey, you know, Joey, you did a great job, right? It's like, cool. But then when you also get those accolades in front of like your peers, it's like, okay, you're stepping it up, even though everybody knows. It's the fact that you're taking the time to actually do it, right? And that sense of achievement, it helps everybody, because at least they know that, hey, we're going in the right direction. All right, cool, we're doing it. And it's not just rewarding, all right, boom, it's the person that's at the top, but also like, all right, you did great. But starting off kind of like towards the bottom, right? Like a 3-2-1, third place, second place, first place. Like, just want to give a quick shout out to these people. They're very close. Boom, boom, boom. And so got it, right? And it doesn't have to be necessarily like a monetary reward, right? I know we talked about that. I know that's in the news a lot. Obviously, don't do a damn pizza party. But like I've done certificates in the past, right?
Yeah.
Certificates of achievement, kind of like you did back in, you know, grade school, right? Like this is what I was, and I actually got like nice certificates to be able to pass out as well, right? Not like the flimsy copy paper, like actual certificate paper, right?
Yeah.
Well, make it a little bit official.
Seriously, man, you know, like, well, so we're talking about, you know, positivity and, you know, trying to motivate people, right? And I feel like a lot of times people want to put together these, they want to put dangle carrots in front of these people, right? And they want to say, okay, if you hit this, this is what we're going to give you, right? But sometimes that's only good for short term, right? Because eventually you're not addressing the things that kind of had these people burnt out, right? You're not addressing things that are preventing them from getting there. You're just wanting them to be there without really having to do much, right? You're just saying, hey, come share it, right? And I feel like, you know, me as a leader, man, I was never the person that wanted to run contests. I never was a person that was wanting to, you know,
throw out, bro.
I mean, for real, man. You know, a lot of people, you know, may have said that, you know, I wasn't a rewarding manager, but as compared to a lot of leaders out there, I wasn't, right? I wasn't the one that was sitting here telling you, hey, man, I'm going to give you this just for doing this, right? It's not a participation award, right? You know, it's not about just doing it to do it. It's about, you know, putting your all into it and making the most of of what's in front of you. You know, like I'm always a person that wants to breed more improvement. And sometimes, yes, that can neglect somebody's emotions. But on the same hand, I am sitting here wanting you to tell me how you're feeling, wanting you to want to get better, and I want to help you get better. And the only way for us to do that is to communicate.
Yeah, I mean, like the whole contest thing, right? There's a difference between like obviously rewarding you for doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that. The stuff I did run though, like I would run either an actual contest where like top three, but we had qualifiers. So if we didn't meet it as a market, it don't matter that one person did so much, right? Because the idea is for everybody to push each other forward, right? So that was a big one. So that was always like the big thing, and that was always when it came to something that was like achievable, and maybe there's like a promotional period for that weekend or something like that, right? So it made sense we were doing it that way. I know my team. This is something that one of my districts brought to me, and it was their idea. A couple of the managers got together and they came up with the idea, and they're like, "Oh, Mark, can you do this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it was a bingo game, right?
Okay.
Bingo based on, so it was essentially us, because we would run it a couple of different ways. The one they liked the most was the store bingo. So if the store, as you know, as a unit, hit their KPIs like in certain metrics, and they got bingo, then they would get a prize for the store, right? So whether that was like because a couple of times I've done like barbecues for them, stuff like that, right, outside of the
Yeah.
stores.
Right.
Not like I'm gonna bring a barbecue pit and we're gonna do it in the back of the store. It's like no, we'll do something like more official, where everybody can relax. We don't have to deal with customers, stuff like that, right? But that's what I'm saying. Like it could be a lot of different things, but it should be a way for you as a leader to show some form of gratitude and show some form of appreciation for the effort that they're putting in, right? Like the awards, I wouldn't do the awards every single week. I would do those on like a quarterly fashion,
There you
right?
go.
So it made sense. Everybody knew where we were at every single month, and at the end of the quarter, that's when those awards really went out, right? And the quarterly ones would also have some kind of like achievement award, right? Where it'd be like a gift card or something along those lines, right?
Right.
And every time it was you have to meet the minimum qualifications, which were always above the standard, was like the standard achievement or like slightly above the standard. So no matter what, going back to, and I've told you this before, like training your people and making sure that you're like your bottom people are the ones who are actually hitting consistently the baseline KPIs that you're trying to achieve. If that is your bottom players and they're not underperforming, you're doing something good. Where your average employee is actually above the minimum KPIs, and your rockstar employees are obviously doing super well.
Yeah.
I mean, doing that and having that kind of not just training, but also environment that pushes them forward to want to achieve it. Because you can train your people all you want. If they don't have the want to, what we've been talking about earlier, if they don't have that want on the inside,
Right.
they're not going to go after anything because they don't have the motivation. And that motivation, what motivates them, you can only do so much as a leader, right? And this is part of what we've talked about. The other part is having that environment where they feel they can come to work, where they feel that you as a leader will support them as individuals.
Yeah.
Right?
One of the things I can't get past this point. So you talked about bingo, right? So as a leader, yes, I have ran the game bingo, but it wasn't about getting bingo. It was about doing blackout. If you ever heard of blackout, you have the whole bingo board. Now I did give them a free space, but that's going back to the whole thing about goals, right? But it's funny that whenever I played bingo, or I put that out in front of them, it wasn't about hitting a certain metric. It wasn't about doing this. It was about what are your behaviors, right? How many times can you notice this particular thing that we've been leaving on the table, and can we bring it out in a comfortable way, right? How can we get used to doing these things? And every time I would do something like as a challenge for our team, I'm all about challenges, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily promise them the world, but I just tell them like, hey, look, guys, we're all trying to get better as a team. Let's make this fun, right? And sometimes I'll split them up into teams and have them compete against each other. And the other person has to, I don't know, maybe buy them lunch or whatever it is. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that I was breeding. I was breeding like specifics about getting back to the basics necessarily, right? I want us to focus on the things that we should be doing every time, and basically generating those good habits versus those habits that kind of throw some things to the wayside.
Yeah. Believe it or not, that idea is actually a really good idea for new hire training.
Okay.
Right. Like for certain milestones, like, all right, to be able to hit this 30-day milestone, this is your blackout card. Boom. Right.
Yeah.
So like, that's actually a good idea. I've never used it in that respect. Right. But just thinking about it, boom, that's actually really good training material that could be implemented. Boom. Right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it's funny. We talked about this last week, man, when we had our guest on, Chris, right? And man, he talked about the different styles of training and how to get people involved, right? And basically throwing somebody out there to do some observations and tell them what to look for, of course, and stick them out there in the real life, then send them to training so that they have a groundwork, a framework of what's supposed to be happening, what's real life, and then start training them according to that. That'll help them fill that card a little bit sooner, I feel.
Yeah. So it's different methods, right? But then that also, comes down to the leader and having the leadership style to really adapt to your team, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have different levels of competency in your team. You're going to have the people that have been around for a while, super adept, super competent what they're doing. You're going to have the people that are avoidance for change, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they perform. They may not perform at the top tier. They may not perform at the low levels, but they perform. But they're also they like to avoid change as much as possible. And especially now, it's always been true, but more truer than now. Times will change, and they will change faster than we can think, right?
Yeah.
And as a leader, you need to learn how to adapt to different things. I know in a previous episode we've talked about like the personality test, right? Are you this personality, that personality? And I know we have different opinions on that, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, is understanding where not just your strong points are as a leader, but understanding where your deficiencies are. Because we're leaders, we're people. We're gonna have areas where we're not the best at, and the sooner you accept that, I know it's hard to believe, guys, right? That we are not 100% on A game on every single point, but that's what makes a really good leader a great leader. Is they understand I'm not the best at this, and this, right?
Yeah.
So these are my strengths. These are the areas I lack on. But understanding like, all right, I can find resources. I can turn to others for assistance. I'm not afraid to ask, right? And when it comes to your team and adapting to them, that's a big one. And it doesn't mean, okay, Joey, you're another leader in the building. I'm going to reach out to you and ask you, how do I deal with this person, right?
Yeah.
It means that I'm going to think about it, use you as a resource, but I'm really going to, have a conversation with the individuals on my team and find out what motivates them, what the personalities, what are some things they do or don't like, right? Because it could be that I'm saying something that it just rubs them the wrong way, but I don't mean it in any ill intent or ill way.
Yeah.
But without their input, because they don't maybe not have felt open to have that conversation, right? Everything I say is like negative or nitpicking. It's like, okay, yeah, my bad. I didn't mean it to come off that way. It's just my personality, right? They got to get to know you as people, as a person, just like you need to get to know your people as people.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree, man. Everything that you're saying has a lot to do with being genuine about what's important to you, right? Are the reports important to you, or are your people important to you? And they're going to figure that out real quick. They're going to say, well, this guy just wants to hit metrics. He doesn't care about who I am. He doesn't care about what's important to me, right? But if you put the people first, if you take care of them, take care of their needs, right? Take care of the things that they need to grow, you're going to grow those metrics regardless. It may take a little bit of time. There's definitely going to be a learning curve for the things that you're going to be changing and for the things that you see that need improvement. But you definitely need to make sure that you are genuine about the things that you're implementing so that they'll stick, right? First of all, they need to stick. They don't need to be, something that you're going to stick on the wall that's going to it's going to fall off in the next hour or so, right? The next time a customer walks in, you're like, oh, wait, what were you doing again? Like, you need to make sure that you are making like every effort to make sure you're just genuine about what you're trying to enforce, and like I said, I feel like people can see through, you just wanting to hit metrics, and not caring about the people.
Oh yeah. And like the thing is, when you do initiatives to really, go shoot and take care of your people, it'll make a difference. Your team will notice it, they'll understand it. And it's just being front and center with them, right? Like, listen, I've said this before, and you'll constantly hear me say it. You don't need to be BFFs with your teams. There's nothing that's ever been written down that says that you as leaders, them as employees, both of y'all need to be BFFs. You're going to butt heads, right? That it's going to happen. There's going to be times where you need to make change, where you need to bring new initiatives in and they don't want to, or there are going to be times where they're going to bring something that's actually very innovative, but you as a leader may not see it, right? So you don't understand it. And once again, it comes to that change aspect. And it's okay. And the reason I say that is when people feel like they're BFFs, they're okay with exploding on each other, right? Yeah. And obviously that's not how it is. We have to be professional with each other. They are not below you. You are not below them. We're all equals, right? All it is that I have maybe some more responsibilities and responsible for maybe a greater aspect of the location or the market, wherever the case is, right? Yeah. But you as a leader owe your people the dignity and respect that they deserve as working people, right? You need to show them that their work, their input is valuable to not just you, not just the team, but also to the organization, because you don't know if that one change that they bring is going to make a small change that will innovate the entire company and actually bring in a lot more revenue than you could have ever imagined just by a tiny little change, right?
Man, I love that, man, because it's awesome that you're saying that you have to make sure that you are listening to your people, right? You have to make sure that you are bringing them in and like listening for that little innovation, right? You have to breed that culture, right? You have to make sure that you are getting them to want to share the little things that they do differently. That is, a little bit against the norm of what the normal process should be, right? Like what makes them successful, right? We don't want to bring back. We don't want to, take them back off what is making them successful. We want to make sure we build on top of that. But also, we want them to share what they have going on to the other people that are around them so that we can make everybody successful. And then, like you're saying, man, that could scale outside your store. That could scale to the market. It could scale to the company. Hell, it could scale to your competition. Like it could change the whole market as a whole, right? And that could breed from one little idea. I love that.
And if you don't have it, but here's the thing, right? Is that as a leader, you refuse to adapt to different personalities, to different situations within your team and your organization. If you don't breed that environment within your team where they should feel comfortable coming to you as a leader and talking or sharing their opinion, if they don't feel that you not just respect them as an employee, but also as a person, if they don't feel that you value their work, their input, if you don't do that, none of that will happen, and you see yourself struggling more. That's a kind of like a personal talk you need to have. You need to look in the mirror and ask, am I creating this kind of environment, this kind of culture where this is happening? Or am I kind of stuck in my ways, refusing to do things? Right. And here's the thing. Don't be, stuck in this, oh yeah, but my company is innovative. My company has a great culture. My company looks for ways to breed, and do this. They create initiatives where I have to send things in, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, it goes from being a cultural thing that happens to, we've talked about it before, right? You're just checking things off on a list. It's getting done. This is what we're doing. Cool. How do your team feel about it though? Are they just like, yeah, they pay for bowling. Cool. Right. Like, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's a difference within, that where the company is forcing you to do events to build a company culture because they want to look cool on social media.
Yeah.
And then actually having a true innovative culture where could be your newest employee has like, hey, Joey, why don't we do this? And you was like, hey, you know what? That's actually never thought about it. Let's see, right?
Yeah.
Let's put some thought behind it, and maybe if it works, let's roll it out.
I mean, honestly, at that point, man, I used to love it when people would come to me with ideas, because I would be like, hey, man, that's such a great idea. I think you should come up with a plan to get us there. And they give you this deer in the headlights, like, what did I just do? I'm like, hey, and that's where you really step in as a leader and say, look, man, I really like your vision, but your vision's up here, right? And you're trying to help me, but I don't think you're giving me the whole vision, right? Like, let's take some time. Let's talk about it a couple times. Let's try and put a plan together. But ultimately, I want this to be your vision, right? And you're definitely going to have some influence on that, right? Because they're coming to you for it, and you're going to be the one implementing it, or they may be the ones implementing it, depending on how that course goes, right?
Yeah.
But you are growing that person to become a leader by doing that, right? And that's really what we need to do. We need to grow everybody to be a leader, to lead themselves, to lead the others around them, right? You want to put them in a spot where they can be innovative, and that it's inviting to everybody around them to listen to what you have to offer, right? And it's a give and take. It's not just what can I give you, or what can I ask of you. It's what can we share to move this team forward.
Oh yeah, big time. And it's so simple in concept, and it is so difficult in practice, right? So don't feel that, oh, this, like, I try. You're always going to continuously try. Have that group environment, have that culture created, and you'll see the difference. With that said, though, we're gonna have to cut it off and on to the next week's episode.
Yeah, we appreciate everything you guys are doing, man. Looking forward to see y'all next week.
All right, and don't forget, hit that subscribe, like button, and share a comment. Let us know what you thought.
Appreciate y'all.
And that brings us to the end of today's Obvious Leadership episode. Remember, every great leader starts with one step, and you're already on your way. Small changes lead to significant impact. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, and remember that leadership is the key to unlocking extraordinary results.